Okay, welcome. Good morning. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to everyone here. Welcome to everyone online as well. Today is our second day of the Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, where today we're going to be focusing this morning on the Eightfold Path, helping you to understand the path to enlightenment. This is the individual steps that you're going to need to learn, the individual factors using the original words of the Buddha that are going to guide you to enlightenment. And then after lunch, we'll come back and I'll teach you breathing mindfulness meditation from beginning to end. And we'll be doing meditation in the morning together here in a moment, and then also in the afternoon as well. So welcome to everyone, whether you're joining us for the first time or you're joining us throughout the entire course. Welcome to everyone. I'm going to start with the chanting and easing us into meditation, and then I'll come in with some guidance. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll just be meditating together. And then we'll come out with the chanting as well. So if you'd like to join, you're welcome to join for the meditation, and then afterwards we'll move into our topic for today. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwatemi Sawakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Namasati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเกวาโพตังมะเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสักขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, welcome again. Welcome to all of you guys. Good morning. Nice to see you guys here this morning. Welcome to everyone online as well. Today we're going to be learning the Eightfold Path. This is the path to enlightenment for all humans. This is where you can learn the core central teaching of the Buddha as it's organized into these three separate sections of wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. If you're interested in getting to enlightenment, that peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that's permanent and all those other qualities that I mentioned yesterday, this is the way to do it through this particular path. There's 8 individual factors: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I'm going to walk you through using the words of the Buddha, helping you guys to be able to understand this so that then you can reflect on it, to independently verify it, and then you can practice it. And as you're practicing it in your life, this is where you're going to see the real improvement to the condition of your mind. So if you're having challenges sleeping, or you're having lots of thoughts going through your mind, you're having discontentedness, this is the way to eradicate all of that. And as I mentioned, it's organized in this wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline section. So we're going to spend the first part of the morning developing this foundation of understanding the wisdom section. Then we're going to end up taking a break. Then I'll come back and we'll be learning the moral conduct section and the mental discipline section, helping you to understand this. When we talk about moral conduct, you're going to see what we're really talking about is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect. These aren't rules or commandments. The Buddha's not trying to convince you to do anything certain way or anything like that. He's just showing you the things that lead to harmful results. And then when you cause harm through your unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life, or unwholesome karma, the results of your decisions. And then this mental discipline is going to share with you what you need to be doing on a daily basis in order to train your mind, not just in meditation, but outside of meditation as well. So just like yesterday, if you guys have questions, just let me know. You can use the microphones here at the temple. Those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. So first, let's look at the words of the Buddha as it relates to right view. The Buddha says here, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here what he's doing is he's pointing to a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. This isn't the Four Noble Truths themselves, but it's kind of a summarized version of it. And he's pointing to it, and he's saying that is right view. So then you would go study the Four Noble Truths. The Eightfold Path is a teaching that everything else integrates into. So he's not going to explain the whole Four Noble Truths all over again, because he's already got that in other places. So underneath of this line, I've got the top section of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is longer than this. And in the book, the very first volume and some of the other volumes, I have the entire Four Noble Truths based on the original words of the Buddha. But what I'm going to do is go in and actually start teaching you the Four Noble Truths. I'm showing you the top section of the Four Noble Truths here so that you can understand that and build confidence that what the Buddha is pointing to as right view is the Four Noble Truths. Now I'm going to go in and teach you the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to start with helping you to understand the three universal truths. These are building blocks to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knows that they're true, I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But in order for you to benefit, this is where you need to know that they're true. And this is what I was talking about yesterday, where you learn, you reflect to independently verify, and you practice, awakening to the wisdom of the natural laws of existence. So I'm going to help you to do that today. I'm going to show you the learning part, and I'm going to teach it to you. Then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it, and then I'm going to teach you how to integrate this into your life and practice it. So this first universal truth here is the universal truth of impermanence. Here, what you're learning is that things are constantly changing around you, that there isn't this steady, constant, fixed state, that instead things are constantly changing. These are called conditioned objects. A conditioned object will arise, it will change, and it will fade away. This is impermanence. Things are constantly changing. They're temporary. That's what impermanence is. In the entire world around you, everything is impermanent. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, things that come in contact with your body, and then any thoughts or ideas that go through your mind. All these things are impermanent. These are called conditional objects. But then you have what's called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. Enlightenment itself is an unconditioned object. And then the natural laws of existence, they are unconditioned object too. They don't arise, change, or fade away. And this is why the teachings that the Buddha shared 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because he's explaining these natural laws, and these natural laws don't change. So this universal truth is explaining to you that things are constantly changing in the world around you. Okay, so this is the learning of this universal truth. But now what you do is you reflect on it to try to independently verify whether it's true or false. And what I suggest you do is start with something that you're familiar with, like the human body. You're very familiar with this, because if you can find something in this material world that is permanent, you've disproven this. So if you take this physical body, which you're very familiar with, and you ask yourself, is it permanent? Or is it impermanent? If it's permanent, that means it's never changed. It's always been the same. And if it's impermanent, that means this physical body is constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? Impermanent, right? That's what you're sharing. You can see that it's been constantly growing and changing. We get teeth that grow in, they fall out. Then new teeth grow in, we get cavities. That's all impermanence. Our hair grows and grows and grows. We cut it, it grows some more. That's change. We get gray hair, we lose our hair. We get a little extra weight here and there. We get pimples and moles, and our skin complexion changes. Our fingernails grow, and then we cut them, and then they grow again. This is constant change with the physical body. What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had the same exact people in your life all throughout your life and nobody's ever changed. If your relationships are impermanent, that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your entire life. So are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Okay. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It goes up and down and up and down. Some people's go up, up, up. Some people goes down, 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 right? This is all impermanence, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent?
Up until today it was permanent.
No, not up until today. It wasn't permanent. It was impermanent. The temperature was constantly changing. If you think about the air pollution as part of the weather, that was constantly changing. The brightness of the sun was changing. The clouds are changing. All these things are changing, right? Now it's raining today. Constant change with the weather, right? We could go on and on and on and on. And if you need to do this, you should, right? You should look around the world and you should constantly look to see, is there anything that's permanent that you can find? Because you need to soak this into the mind and be able to see the truth and understand the wisdom behind this. And you can also look around like the temple walls, right? You can see the impermanence in the walls. We've got holes in the walls. We've got different color of paint. We've got different marks on the walls. This is all impermanence. This carpet was at one time brand new, and now it's got stains on it. That's change and impermanence. You can look at the flooring, the wood floor, the different colors of wood. This is all impermanence. You can see that you eat different things each day. You sleep in different places. You sleep for different lengths of time. You do different things. Everything around you is impermanent. Okay, so this is the first universal truth. The second universal truth, I'll go through all of them, then I'll open up to questions. The second universal truth is called discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering, but I don't use the word suffering here because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching. I'm going to explain to you what this universal truth is, and then I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering, because if you've studied the teachings of the Buddha other places, you might have heard them using that word regularly. The word that's in the original Pali Canon is dukkha. This is the word that's used to describe this. And when the Buddha describes the word dukkha, he talks about it as pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. And this is represented as discontent, discontented, and discontentedness in the way that I'm sharing the Buddha's teachings here. Because the pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant for you to experience. These are called conditioned feelings. Then there's painful feelings, things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. These are very painful to experience. And then there's things that are neither painful nor pleasant. And I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But say shyness. Shyness, you can see that it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say somebody came and sat really close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, you're just kind of uncomfortable. You're maybe kind of dissatisfied. These are feelings that are experienced in the unenlightened state. This is pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are conditioned feelings, meaning that the mind is going to form some feeling based on a condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside and you wake up and you see the sun, you might be so excited. You might be so happy. Yay, I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to go spend time with my friends. I've been wanting to go on this trail for a long time. Yay, it's going to be so exciting. Then you go take a shower and you come out and now it's pouring down raining. And now you're sad. Now you're frustrated because you based your inner feeling of happiness on the sun, and the sun is impermanent. That means your feeling of happiness is impermanent too. This is a conditioned feeling. So what an enlightened being would do is when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They're already joyful. They have unconditioned joy, unconditioned happiness. They see it's sunny outside. Sweet. I'm going to go hiking. I've been interested to go to this trail for a while. I'm going to invite some friends. This will be a great time. Let's go hiking. And then you go take a shower. And when you come out, it's raining. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're not going hiking. Maybe we'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over for some food. I'll cook them some dinner. Maybe I'll just stay home and read a book. Right? You could do anything. It's up to you, whatever you decide to do. But you'll be able to maintain your joy because your joy wasn't based on the sun. So therefore, when things change, your mind understands this as an enlightened being. You understand things are constantly changing. So you're not basing your inner feelings on some condition like the sun or your bank account or what mom or dad does. In the unenlightened state, if your bank account is here, you'll be happy. And then when it drops down, you'll be sad or frustrated if you have a craving for your bank account to be a certain balance. So these are what's called conditional feelings. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And the way that you independently verify this is right now you know that your mind is unenlightened. Think about all the different feelings that you experience and ask yourself, does this accurately describe that? Because what the Buddha is describing is the unenlightened mind. He's describing that the unenlightened mind experiences these conditional feelings where it's going up and down and up and down. And you should be able to see that every feeling that you experience fits into these three. That this is a universal truth. That all unenlightened beings are going to experience these three feelings. He's describing the unenlightened mind to you. Now, these are what's called conditioned feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond all of this. You're experiencing unconditioned mental qualities that are just always there. They're always on. The peace and the joy, the happiness is just always there. It's unconditioned. That there is no condition that needs to be present in order to produce this. In the unenlightened state, it'll be like this condition, this condition, this condition, this condition, this thing, this thing, this thing. And when all those things are true, then I will be happy. And the more of those that you have, the less and less happiness that you have. In the enlightened mental state, all that has been wiped away. You're just pursuing life as a goal, objective, or interest. You're making wise decisions. You can maintain your happiness no matter what's going on. So I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because when you're happy or excited or elated, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Right? You're not suffering in those situations. Or when that person you don't know comes and sits close to you on public transportation and your body's touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. So if we use the word suffering, it explains the painful feelings really well. Because when you're sad, angry, frustrated, yeah, you probably feel like you're suffering. But when you're experiencing the other two feelings, you're not suffering in that situation. So if we continue to use the word suffering, you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught on this important topic. That means you're missing 66% of what he actually taught. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how would you ever get to the goal of what it is that he's teaching you and guiding you to accomplish? So if you use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, this much more accurately represents the full spectrum of feelings that are experienced in the unenlightened mind. And that's why I use this phrase or this word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. This is actually the solution to one of those fetters that we were talking about yesterday. When we were talking about those taints or pollutions or defilements of the mind, the personal existence view, that very first one, where I was explaining to you how the unenlightened mind has the misunderstanding or confusion that this body is you, this self-image is you, or this mind, this self-identity is you and who you are. And now because the mind's clinging to this, you'll experience discontentedness when you experience either agreeable or disagreeable contact related to the self-image or self-identity. So if somebody compliments you and says, wow, you're so handsome or you're so beautiful, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. Wow, you might feel like so great about that, right? But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging to you because of impermanence. That it's not possible for everyone to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. You're going to experience people who are disrespectful, and they're going to say things like that. But you can't control what they say. You can't control what they do. You can only control your own mind. So if you have personal existence view in your mind, when you have this disagreeable contact, You'll be angry. You'll be frustrated because you think that this body is you. Same thing if you spill like chocolate ice cream or spaghetti sauce or something on your clothes, you'll feel embarrassed. Or if you see a mole or a pimple or gray hair or losing your hair or you get a little extra fat here and there, you might be shaken up by these things when the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. Then there's the self-identity in the mind, where the mind's clinging and holding on to either your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, and any number of other things that the mind can cling to and think that this is who you are as a person. Like, I am American, or I am Ecuadorian, or I am German, or any of these things. I don't know where you're from, Peter. U.S., I am American, right? I am Chinese, I am Japanese. There can be any number of things. It could be, I am a Buddhist teacher. It could be, I am kind. It could be, I am a great tipper, right? Any of this I am that the mind's clinging to, when you're experiencing certain contact related to that, you'll be shaken up. So for example, if you identify with, I am American, and now when somebody says something complimentary about that, you'll get pleasant feelings. But then when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's degrading and disparaging American people, then now you're going to feel angry or sad or frustrated because they're talking about me. The mind has adopted this identity. Just because this body was born on a land that we refer to as America, the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. It's just a place where this body was born, right? So if you adopt this identity, you'll be shaken up. Or say, for example, you're a police officer and you've been working in this field for 10 or 20 years. And now you get injured or you get retired or you get fired from this job. You'll feel lost and kind of like a part of you is missing when you're no longer able to do this job, right? These are things that occur. If you've been a boyfriend or girlfriend and you identify with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. Now when the relationship's over, you might feel like you want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because you want to assume that identity of I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. When in reality, that's not going to solve the problem. The way to solve this problem is to realize non-self, is to realize that this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are. This self-image, this self-identity is not you. And there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, and we can refer to this as a person, but these things aren't you. Okay, so the Buddha is explaining that there is no self. But the problem is that the mind's confused. It has this misunderstanding, this misperception, this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, thinking that this body is you. So here's how you independently verify that there is no self, just like the Buddha is describing, is think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about your character and your personality. Think about yourself, right? Who you thought you were as a person. Has it been exactly the same through all those periods of time, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? So you can see there's no permanent self. Take this one. Say your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person because you only have one hand and one arm? You say no. What do you say? No? You say no? Okay. So there, intellectually, you understand this body is not you. Intellectually, you understand that. But your mind is confused because when somebody says something either complimentary or disparaging about this body, you get upset, you get frustrated. If this body was you, when I asked you that question, if you're amputated your arm, are you less of a person? You would say, yes, I'm less of a person because I have less of a body, right? But you just said, no, you're not less of a person. So you understand that this body isn't you. It's not who you are. But the mind is confused because of this personal existence view. It has this lack of wisdom, this misunderstanding, this misperception. Here's another way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Nobody's pointing. Okay, you're pointing there. That's common. People will point here. Okay, sometimes people point here, right? So if you point here, look at what you're pointing to. Literally, look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. So is this shirt you? That shirt you're wearing, is that you? Is that who you are? No? Okay, so if I took off the shirt and held it up and pointed to it, that's not me. That's not who I am, right? And that shirt that you're wearing, that's not you, right? Okay, so we throw away the shirt. That's not you. Okay, so now I say, where are you? And someone might point. Okay, what are you pointing to? Literally look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to skin, right? Okay, so we hold up the skin. Is that you? That skin you got? Is that who you are? That skin, is that you? No? Okay, so we throw away the skin.
Your skin.
Where are you? Where are you? Okay, you point. Perhaps you point to the ribs, the muscle tissue, the fluid, the organs. There's no bits and pieces and parts of that that's you. None of that is you. But the problem in the unenlightened state is the mind's clinging to this, thinking that is your skin, when it's not yours, because you can't keep it permanently. It's impermanent. It doesn't belong to you. That skin is fluffing off all the time, right? It's not yours. It's not you. It's not who you are. But the problem in the unenlightened mind is it'll cling to this and thinks that this is you. So if you get a scar or you get a burn or you get a pimple or a mole, you'll be shaken up by that and you'll be upset or angry or frustrated with that. So you can get to the point where you realize non-self, you realize that this body nor this mind is you. This is part of the training. And it's in chapter 16, volume 1, chapter 16 is where I teach about how to dissolve the ego. It's not something that we talk about in this course, but in other courses that I teach, in other retreats that I teach, in other programs, I teach you more about the ego and how to dissolve it and how to eliminate it. But it's all coming from this universal truth of non-self to eradicate the personal existence view. This is the solution to that particular aspect of the mind. But it takes time to learn this and understand it and then implement tools and techniques to gradually eradicate this fetter of personal existence view from the mind. And as you do, you'll notice that the mind is more peaceful and more joyful, more calm, more content, because your mind can't be shaken up anymore. When somebody says something complimentary about this physical body or any particular thing that might have been in your mind as self-identity, you won't be affected by it. You might say thank you, you might say, oh, I appreciate your kind words or whatever you say, but you won't be, having, all these excited feelings because somebody says all Americans are lovely and kind and friendly and generous. But then also by not allowing your mind to get those pleasant feelings, when somebody says something degrading and disparaging about Germans or Americans or Ecuadorians, you won't be shaken up by that either, right? When somebody says all Americans are blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's their opinion. I am not American. This body was born in America, but the mind doesn't identify that way. So when that person is talking about all Americans, blah, 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 well, of course, we know the universal truth of impermanence, that it's not true, right? That all Americans are a particular way. But also, if your mind doesn't identify with I am American, you can reside peaceful and joyful because they're not talking about me because I'm not American. This body was born there, but I am not American, right? So you can train your mind to let this go, where you can let go of this personal existence view and reside peaceful and joyful. Sometimes people say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find my true self, right? They go on this journey to find their true self. You can't find your true self because it doesn't exist. You can go on this journey to maybe find new friends, new hobbies, new activities. You might find a new job, but none of that stuff is you. Your job, your friends, your activities, your hobbies, that's not you. That's not who you are. Those are just things that you're doing in your life. And they're all impermanent. As soon as you grab onto these and think that this is you, when things start changing, you'll be shaken up. And all these things are going to change. So if you identify with your job or occupation or your hobbies or activities or your friends, and you think that this is who you are, as soon as all that stuff changes, you'll be shaken up by it, right? So you can get liberated from all that by realizing non-self. So these are the three universal truths. I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have before we move on further. So here at the temple, if you guys have questions, you're welcome to ask those with the microphones. And online, you can ask questions through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. You have a question?
Jo. Okay. Yeah, for me, it's difficult to not identify with something because in the past we had many lives. Or I just say I, but there's no I, right? But or this self had many lives in the past. So I know this. So I know, or this self knows that next life there's also someone who feels, and it's gonna be this self or this identity. So how I can feel not separated, or I can feel the non-self, because I know that there's a next life, and it's maybe. So what I'm doing now is to I work for my next. Some people think also they work for the next life and so on. So it's just confusing how to.
Sure. There doesn't have to be a next life. Right now, you're thinking that there is going to be a next life, but there doesn't have to be. You can get to enlightenment. In terms of how to eradicate personal existence view and fully realize non-self, this is what I teach in other classes. If you send me a message, I can send you a video where I've taught those and recorded it, or you can just look on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and you will see that I teach the universal truth of non-self and how to eradicate it. Because that class takes me about an hour and a half to talk about it, because you need to more fully understand what it is, and you need to understand the proactive methods of how to eliminate it. And what I'm going to teach you today with the Eightfold Path is a foundation that you need before you study that. So there's other things that you need to learn to fully eradicate personal existence view, but typically early on what you're doing is you're working to get your arms around the Eightfold Path first. And once you get your arms around that and you start practicing that really well, after a few months, you might decide that you're ready to look at eliminating personal existence view. But if you'd like to look at it at any time, like this afternoon or tonight, you can look at Volume 1, Chapter 16. That's where I teach the more detail on personal existence view and the proactive methods of how to eliminate it from the mind, because it's more exhaustive than just giving you a couple of things. But it's things like, this is why we wear simple clothes. Right? Just simple clothes, because the mind is trying to identify with the body as being who you are. So you'll stand in front of your clothes and be like, who am I going to see today? How do I want to look? And now let me pick that perfect clothes of how I want to look based on the people I'm going to see today. Whereas if you just wear the same simple clothes every day, your mind doesn't have the opportunity to do that, right? If you wore jewelry, your mind is trying to adorn this body to look a certain way with people. So usually people get rid of their jewelry. This is the reason why we shave our hair, for example, so that your mind isn't associating with this body as who you are as a person. These are all things that you can do, but there's other variations of these things, and there's other things as well that you would need to slowly, gradually implement, not as rules or commandments or anything that you're required to do, but understanding how it's affecting the mind to be able to get to the point where the mind doesn't identify with this body or this mind as being who you are as a person. So there's other things you need, but that's just a little sample that you'll see in Chapter 16. Another question?
You hear me? Yeah, okay. You talked about in the beginning about impermanence, and you said we can on the everyday we can realize that. You would say this is a kind of meditation practice to reflect on impermanence. If we walk through the street, we think about impermanence or about what you said.
Is it a kind of practice? So your mic cut out a little bit. The mic's impermanent too, right? The microphone's impermanent. So it's not a meditation practice. What it is it's reflecting on the teachings to independently verify them. A meditation practice, you're going to hear me say this afternoon, is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities, either in the seated, lying, standing, or walking positions. So if you were walking down the street and you saw crack in the sidewalk and you're like, impermanence. That's not a meditation. That's a reflection. That's where you're independently verifying, like, wow, even the sidewalk's impermanent. Wow, the height of the sidewalk's changing, the color, the shape, the texture, that's all impermanence. Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't have sidewalks. That's impermanence. Wow, look at that fence. It must have been painted at some point, but the paint's faded away. That's impermanence, right? Like right now, it's fairly quiet here, but at some point, there's going to probably be an ambulance or a police siren that goes by or a motorbike that goes by with a loud engine. The sounds are impermanent, right? So this is reflecting on the teachings and then deeply soaking them into the mind so that the mind can absorb the teachings and be able to see the truth that everything around you is impermanent, including that microphone that you were just talking on. Yes, that helps you. If you can't see the truth for impermanence, like you don't have to do it every day for the rest of your life, but if you can't yet see the truth that yes, everything in the world around you is impermanent, then you're going to need to do this for a few days or maybe a week or two where you go around and you see impermanence all around you. Like say you're talking on your phone to your mom and the phone gets cut off. Impermanence. Or say that your mom told you she's going to call you at 2 p.m. today. And then she doesn't call you until 5 p.m. Impermanence. She said she was going to call at 2, but something happened. She wasn't able to call until 5, right? This is impermanence because what you're going to see in a moment is the problem is that the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting this world to be permanent when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. Yeah, it's so key to understanding this. Did you have a question, Peter?
I have a question. It might be too broad a question or in the wrong time frame or wrong place in our teaching, but why is it so difficult? Why do we come to be with these issues and it takes so much effort to eradicate these things? It's very frustrating. The vast majority of humanity is dealing with these issues, and very few get past them. It's very confusing why we come to be with all this baggage.
So this is what we were talking about yesterday with the 10 fetters or those pollutions or taints. Remember the 10th fetter of ignorance or unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. That's the cause of all of this, is that because the mind lacks wisdom of these natural laws, it continues to struggle in the world. Just like you lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity and you struggled in the world, you struggled until you got wisdom of the natural law of gravity. Once you gain the wisdom of the natural law of gravity, now you can make wise decisions. You don't struggle with that natural law anymore. But these natural laws, you struggle with them because the mind still is unknowing. It has that ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, the confusion or misunderstanding or misperception. So that's why you can't believe anything that I share with you. You need to get to the point where you learn it, you reflect on it to independently verify it, and you practice it. So you need to be able to see the truth in each individual one of these, that they are the truth. And if you don't see that now, then you need to continue to reflect and see that for yourself. Right? Because you're going to need to spend time with these teachings and soaking them in. But it's the lack of wisdom that leads to the continuous struggles that all of humanity is experiencing. Like you say, very few people at this point in time are enlightened. But that's the goal of what I'm working towards, is to help more and more people get to enlightenment so they're not struggling in the world anymore. And as you decide that you would like to do that work, you'll see the struggles dissipate. But there's going to be some struggle on the path to enlightenment, but you need to not shrink back from that struggle, because what the unenlightened mind does with its lack of wisdom is when you start struggling with something, you'll run away from it. Right? The mind wants to push it away and run away from it. And you're just ensuring that the struggle continues because you never cultivate the wisdom that you need in order to overcome that struggle. So if every time the mind struggles, an individual runs away from the struggle, then you never actually experience improvement. But if you turn around and you walk towards the struggle, now you can cultivate wisdom so that now that struggle won't occur anymore. So the only reason why the struggle is occurring, the difficulties are occurring, is because of the lack of wisdom in the mind. And when you turn away from it, you never get the opportunity to cultivate the wisdom. So you stay stuck in this continuous cycle of experiencing the same things over and over and over again. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is saying, you know what? I'm done with all these struggles. I'm going to walk forward and I'm going to confront these struggles and I'm going to cultivate wisdom and I'm going to integrate this wisdom into my life and I'm going to live this better way of life with this wisdom of the natural laws.
I guess I'm resentful that I was born with all this struggle, and I want to blame somebody. Mm-hmm. Well, why couldn't we have been born already enlightened? I mean, it's a cyclical question with no answer, I guess.
I can answer it for you. Every single being that's ever been born has been unenlightened, because when we're born, we have ignorance. We have the unknowing of true reality. Just like you couldn't walk, you couldn't talk, you couldn't control your urine and your defecation. You couldn't do anything but go, feed me, right? That's all you could do, right? So you lacked wisdom when you were born. Every single being that's ever been born has been unenlightened. And it's typical for the unenlightened mind to want to blame other people. This is typical, right? But as long as you blame other people, you're not solving your problem, because it's not other people's problem. It's within your own mind. So when you get away from the blame game, even not blaming yourself, but get to the point where you understand, okay, there's a lack of wisdom here. Understood. Now let me do everything I can to cultivate wisdom. Let me come to the temple. Let me read books. Let me watch the videos, the classes. Let me talk with my teacher privately. Let me meditate. Let me do these things and slowly cultivate the wisdom. And this is what's going to produce the results. Blaming others isn't going to produce any results. That's actually the problem. That's part of the problem, right? So that's what the unenlightened mind typically does, is it wants to blame others. But when you see this as, hey, there's just a lack of wisdom here, and I can change that, because that's impermanent. This lack of wisdom is impermanent. You can cultivate wisdom and improve the condition of your mind. And that's what's going to lead you to liberation and freedom from strong feelings and enlightenment and peace and joy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me just check to see if we have questions online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. All right, so let's move to the next thing. This next thing is another building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, and then we're going to move into the Four Noble Truths to establish right view. So this word craving, desire, attachment, if you've been studying Buddhist teachings, you might have heard this word before, but I'm going to help you understand what it actually is. It's craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is where the mind is longing, yearning for something. It's thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks that satisfaction is outside of you, that if I just get those new pair of shoes, everything will be perfect. If I get more money, that's what I need. I need more money, or I need a bigger house, or I need a nicer motorbike or a nicer car, or I need a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's what it is. That's what'll solve the problems. Let me get those things. So the mind longs and yearns for these things. If you've ever been in the mall and you've been walking down the mall and you're like, oh, new pair of shoes. Yes. Oh, I need those new pair of shoes. Or new computer or new phone. Oh, that's what it is. I need that thing. That's what's going to make my life feel better. That's what's going to complete me. This is the craving, desire, attachment. Not the object itself. It's what's going on in the mind. It's the mind longing, yearning for the object. So the computer isn't the attachment. The phone isn't the attachment. The boyfriend, girlfriend isn't the attachment. It's the mind longing, yearning. It's something that's going on inside the mind. It's the mind pulling towards the objects of its affection. So do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Have you experienced this, where your mind's been pulling towards something, thinking that this thing's going to complete you? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay. All right. So this is a building block to help you understand now the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is going to explain the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. These are things that you can independently verify for yourself. Remember, you're not believing anything here, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. So you're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you're practicing. So the first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So the problem that you're experiencing is your discontentedness. The mind's going up and down and up and down. That's the problem. Okay? The second noble truth is explaining the cause of that problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to say that a few times, and I'll give you some examples so you can reflect on this and verify it. Okay, so the discontentedness, those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. The happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, the sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, the loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all those things, it's being caused by craving, desire, attachment. The longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. And if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. This is what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state. Excuse me. What's causing it is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. Okay? So let me give you an example. Say you meet a brand new person who's going to potentially be a boyfriend or girlfriend for you. When you guys first meet, wow, things couldn't be better. Feels so great, feels so wonderful. Someone's showing you some affection. They're sending you text messages, they're calling you up, they're maybe inviting you to go do things. You're going to the movies, you're going to dinner, you're going to the park, you're having nice conversations. You might even be having intimate contact. Wow, so much pleasant feelings based on the craving, desire, attachment to have this person in your life. The attachment isn't the person. It's the longing, yearning, and wanting this thing. Well, now as time goes on, your expectations grow and their expectations grow. You want more from them and they want more from you. Early on, there was no expectations. That's why everything was so peaceful and so wonderful. But as time went on, you got a bunch of expectations, they got a bunch of expectations, and they weren't being fulfilled. You weren't getting what you wanted, and that person wasn't getting what they wanted. And now there's anger and sadness and frustration, and the mind is attributing this to that person. And now you get angry and sad and frustrated, irritated, the relationship's over, right? And now you get even more angry, perhaps. You might even get more sad. You might get lonely. You might get bored. All these different feelings because the mind's craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, it was always impermanent. The unenlightened mind just didn't understand that. The unenlightened mind was holding on to this relationship thinking that it was permanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, right? And if you're holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent, then when they die, you'll feel miserable, right? It's not the love that's causing those feelings. It's the craving, desire, attachment. It's wanting them to be permanent. So when grandma and grandpa die, or if they've died, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters, if you grieved, it's not the love that's causing you to be sad or grieve. It's your mind craving permanence, wanting them to be permanent. When in reality, grandma and grandpa are impermanent. They were born, so they had to die. They arose, they changed, and they faded away. Just like the Buddha is explaining. He's explaining to you the way the world is, right? But if you're holding on and wanting them to be permanent, you can only be happy when they're alive. That's your craving is fulfilled. But when they die, your craving is not being fulfilled, so you get the painful feelings. The same thing happens at a wedding. If you've ever been to a wedding and you've grieved or somebody around you was grieving, it's the same thing. They're holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent. And now at this ceremony, they're going off into the world and their mind is confronted with that impermanence. And because of the lack of wisdom in the unenlightened mind, the mind doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. So it's holding on and wanting this person to be permanent. Same thing happens if your parents sent you to college. Your parents might have grieved, or you might have grieved when they left. And you were left at college. This is what happens when we're in kindergarten, right? We're the first 3, 4, 5 years of our life are with our parents, and then we go away to kindergarten. We cry and cry and cry and cry because we're holding on to our parents and we're wanting them to be permanent. And now we're confronted with this impermanence that we don't understand. And because of our craving, holding on, wanting it to be permanent, we grieve and we get sad. We get those painful feelings. But you don't have to have that. You can eliminate that. Here's another more simple example. Say you buy a brand new car, and now with this brand new car, when you drive it off the parking lot of the dealer, you feel so great. You get all these pleasant feelings. Wow, look at me. I got this brand new car. I'm so successful. Wow, look at me, right? Well, now when you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car, you'll be frustrated. You'll be angry. You'll be irritated. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing your anger, your frustration. It's your craving, wanting this car to be beautiful permanently. The mind doesn't want there to be any change because it's craving permanence. But that's not the world you live in. You live in an impermanent world. So we're not talking about what's wise and unwise here, because it's wise not to scratch somebody's car. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where this car is impermanent. It's going to need the tires to be changed. It's going to need an oil change. The upholstery is going to get ripped or torn. The paint's going to fade away. This car is impermanent. But when we crave for it to be permanent, then you're going to experience discontent feelings. That's what's going to happen. That's the cause. It's the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. So this is the learning part of the second noble truth. But now I would like to invite you to reflect on this, to be able to independently verify it. So what you do is you take a recent time where your mind has been discontent. It was either this morning or yesterday or last week or 2 weeks ago. Think about that situation. What was it? Remind yourself about what was happening. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else for your anger, your sadness, or frustration. But look at that with this fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. What was it that your mind wanted? It wanted something. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have got pleasant feelings. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry, you got frustrated, you got agitated or annoyed. You can look at this and independently verify for yourself. You can see every single time that you've ever been angry or frustrated, your mind has caused it itself. Even though you were adamantly arguing with people and attempting to convince them that they were causing you to be angry and they needed to change what they were doing, in fact, it was your own mind that was causing this. When your mind's experiencing these painful feelings and you lack wisdom, you will tend to push people away. You will tend to push people or situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But it doesn't, because you just become agitated or annoyed about something else. It's just a matter of time. Because the real cause of the problem isn't that person. It isn't that situation. If that was the real cause of the problem, when you push people away, you'd be done. You'd solve your problem, because that was the cause of the problem. And when I push them away, I don't get irritated and annoyed anymore. But when you push people away out of your life, you still get irritated, you still get annoyed. Or when you have those painful feelings arising and you don't understand right view and you don't understand the Four Noble Truths, you will be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. Through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. You'll be bitter and harsh and hostile, thinking that you're justified in your conduct and that they deserve this because they've made you angry. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people. And you'll try to control people to do things your way. And the mind thinks, if I can just get this person to do things my way, I get my cravings fulfilled, I'll get my pleasant feelings and problem solved. But problem's not solved, because you can't train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. It's just not possible. You can't get things your way. So as long as you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, these wants, these expectations, then in some situations you're going to get what you want and you're going to get pleasant feelings. In other situations, you're not going to get what you want and you get painful feelings. So there's a solution for this. And that's what the third noble truth is explaining. The third noble truth is saying the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. When you eliminate the holding on and wanting something to be permanent, you can get to the peace and to the joy. And you can independently verify this, because think about that boyfriend or girlfriend you had where you were very angry when you guys separated. Maybe they went with another person and you were angry and frustrated about that. But then at some point, a few weeks later, a few months later, maybe a few years later, you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with somebody else, so be it. Or if she wants to be with somebody else, so be it. Go. and your mind let go. And when your mind let go, you weren't angry anymore. You weren't frustrated anymore. You felt fine. You felt peaceful. You're like, you know what? I'm at peace with this whole thing. Let them go. And when your mind let them go, you regained your peacefulness, right? And the way that you accomplish this, where you can train your mind to no longer have cravings, desires, attachments, is described in the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. When you understand and you fully practice the Eightfold Path, you'll get to the point where you no longer have any discontentedness because you've eliminated all your cravings, desires, attachments. This is the complete, perfect plan that when you dial this into your life, that it will produce enlightenment. It's like trying to get a better quality sound out of the speakers. You have 8 individual dials and you dial these in and you tweak it and you get a better and better quality of sound out of the speakers. The same thing's true about your mind. When you dial these 8 factors into your life closer and closer, your mind will perform more optimally. So that's what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to now share with you all the different steps on the Eightfold Path. But you need to first understand this right view. This right view is a foundation. What right view is that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. It's your own cravings, desires, attachments. It's your longing. It's your yearning. What wrong view is blaming other people, that other people are the cause of this problem. As long as you go around with wrong view, you'll never solve your problem. You'll never solve the discontentedness because other people aren't the cause. So that's why the Buddha starts with right view. His very first teaching is right view, is the Four Noble Truths. When he would start with a brand new student, he would start with the Four Noble Truths. Because unless you understand that your mind's causing these discontent feelings, why would you do anything else on the path to enlightenment? Right? If you firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry, then that means you're perfect and everybody else should be here at the temple, right? Everyone else should be here, not you, right? But if you understand right view, then you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And now you can actually implement the solutions, the tools, the techniques to solve it, and you'll get to real results. This is why you haven't been able to eliminate the anxiety and the stress and the fear and the guilt and the shame and all those other discontent feelings, because you haven't understood what the problem is, what the cause of that problem is, what the solution is, and what the complete path to eliminating this. You haven't understood the Four Noble Truths. You haven't seen them. You haven't penetrated them. You haven't independently verified and solved the truth for yourself. So you can have a breakthrough. That's what the Buddha describes it as, and you'll notice that for yourself, that you can have a breakthrough where you finally understand what is the problem, what is the cause of that, what is the elimination, and what is the path forward. And when you have that breakthrough, once and for all, you know what it is that's causing these discontent feelings, and now you can implement the solutions to solve them. But as long as you had wrong view, you wouldn't be able to solve anything because it's everybody else, right? So it's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. You shouldn't think of yourself as you are at fault, or you need to blame yourself for these feelings, because it's just a lack of wisdom. The mind just has a lack of wisdom. What you need to be able to do is get to the point where you just see true reality. And the true reality is, yeah, my mind is causing my own discontentedness, the cravings, desires, attachments. That's what's causing it. And you can see that through your independent verification. And now once you know that, now you need to integrate that into your life more and more, so that when you're angry and frustrated or experiencing any other discontent feeling, rather than trying to blame other people, the way that you practice the Four Noble Truths is you look internal. Where before, you might blame mom or dad or brothers or sisters or boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, children, neighbors. You might try to be looking for someone to blame. Don't do that anymore. If you penetrate right view and you establish right view, you start looking internally. And when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're irritated, you look and you see, what is it? There's some craving, desire, attachment here. There's something my mind's longing, yearning for. And now when you see it, then you can eradicate it. So I had a student before that says, hey, David, I was at home and I left to go to work and my house looked a certain way. And when I came home, my wife had her craft project all over the house. And I got frustrated as soon as I came in the house. How did my mind cause this frustration? I wasn't even there. It's my wife that caused me to be frustrated. She's the one who messed up the house. Okay, this mind is craving permanence. When you went to work, the house looked a certain way. And when you were coming home, you were expecting, you were wanting, you were craving the house to look that way permanently. And it's just not possible. The house can't look that way permanently. Your wife has this craft project all over the house. The house is impermanent. It's not going to look one particular way. And because you were craving for it to look a certain way, when you were confronted with impermanence, your mind didn't like that. So one of the ways to say your mind craves permanence is to say you don't like impermanence. The mind does not like change. The unenlightened mind doesn't like when things are changing. So you need to get very comfortable with things that are changing, that things are going to be constantly changing. And this is the training that you do on in the rest of the Eightfold Path that I'm going to teach you. So I see you have a question. So let me see what question you have. Anybody online, if you have questions, you can ask those as well.
Okay. Yeah, just thought, for example,
I'm not sure if your mic's working.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, hold it up to your mouth.
I went out from Germany to train my mind to find, to know more about Buddhism and meditation. And a reason also, it was also a small escape because I felt in Germany was a lot of stress. My family seems depressed, and my friends and so on. And I think you would say this is a good way to
Getting some impermanence with the mic.
So I thought I took a step away, went here. You would say this is a possible way because it's a kind of running away first, but because I'm a beginner and sometimes it's overwhelming for me, or I'm interpreting too much in it. You say that it's a own mind who is not developed this wisdom. So I went away to teach myself to come back and to bring this wisdom with that I'm stronger to deal with these problems. Is this a way? You would say, okay, why not?
Yeah.
Or is it a running away, too much running away?
No, this is actually part of the solution. So this thing here where the Buddha is talking about eliminating discontentedness as possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. So there's multiple things you do. The first thing is you practice breathing mindfulness meditation. And you're going to see that as it's part of the 8th step. It's part of the right concentration. So there's multiple things you need to practice, but targeting craving, desire, attachment is breathing mindfulness meditation, because every time your mind moves off the breath, you let go and come back. You let go and come back. You let go and come back. Because with craving, desire, attachment, the mind's holding on. It's wanting things to be permanent. So when you're focused on the breath and your mind moves off the breath and you cut that off, what you're really doing is training your mind to let go. That's what you're training the mind to do. Then you're also practicing generosity, where you're training your mind to give and share. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment, your mind's going to be selfish and it's going to hold on to things very tightly. So when you can share your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return, this is very helpful for your mind to train it to let go. Okay, so these are generalized training that you get underway as part of your Eightfold Path. But then when you identify a craving, like you had all kinds of cravings in Germany. That's why you were so stressed when you were there. So what you do is you distance yourself from your cravings. This is why the Buddha went away for a period of time. He left, right? And now when you distance yourself from the object that your mind is craving, your mind has an opportunity to let it go. So if you were to live side by side with mom and dad and brothers and sisters, you could still eliminate your attachment, but it's actually helpful to go away and train your mind to let go through this practice. So there's 2 ways to eliminate a craving in addition to the breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. The first way is to distance yourself from the object and then train your mind to let it go with the breathing mindfulness meditation, the generosity, and so forth and so on. The second way to eliminate a craving is to fulfill it. So for example, say I really want to go to the Philippines and I've always wanted to go to the Philippines and I just long and yearn to go to the Philippines. I could distance myself from that and I could cut that off and cut it off and cut it off and train the mind to not want it anymore, right? Or I could just go to the Philippines and just check it out and drive around and tour around and look around. After 5 days, 10 days, however long I'm in the Philippines, okay, been there, done that. I don't have that craving anymore, right? So there's two ways to eliminate a craving. Is you can cut it off and let it go by distancing yourself and then train your mind to cut it off, or you can fulfill it. And if it's something that is a wholesome thing, like going to the Philippines, I'm not causing any harm to anybody. So I could go to the Philippines to extinguish my craving. But if you had a craving to snort cocaine, for example, I wouldn't suggest that you snort cocaine to fulfill your craving, right? That would be unwise. So when you have cravings to so many people in your life, one of the things you can do is go away and come to a place like Thailand. And then this trains your mind to let go, and it trains their mind to let go too. You're probably noticing slowly but surely, the longer you're away, your relationship improves. But you're going to need to learn how to train your mind that when you go back, if you choose to go back, that you don't allow your mind to grab on. And now you're right back into the craving, desire, attachment again. So that's what you can be doing in a situation like this, where you've come away, is train your mind, get the help that you need. And then when you go back to Germany, you'll be in a better mental state to be able to have relationships without attachment. You can have relationships without attachment, where you can live with people, you can love people, you can have great, fulfilling, sustaining, satisfying relationships when you don't have attachment. But when you have attachment to your parents, for example, if they do what you want, you'll be happy. But if they don't do what you want, you'll be sad and frustrated. So this is going to help your mind, and it's going to help their mind too. But you're going to need to train and get to the point where you understand this, so that when you're interacting with people, you don't get attached to them, but you can love them, you can enjoy spending time with them, you can have a great relationship, just not having an attachment to them. Because when you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, and you're together and you feel so great when you're together, but then when they're away, you might miss them and you feel miserable. It's like, I feel so miserable, I just want them to come back. This is the mind having attachment, that when you're together, you're happy, but when they're away, you feel those painful feelings. This is because the mind's attached. You can get to the point where when you're together, you enjoy that time, and it's a great time together. But when you're away from them, you can enjoy that too. You can go out and do other things. But when you're attached to this person, you'll miss them, and you'll feel miserable when they're gone. So this is what you can get to, where you can get liberated from these feelings. But the mind, with a lack of wisdom, it doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It doesn't have the training to be able to maintain its contentedness and its joy when it's away from attachments like this. So this is a great way to work on eliminating your attachments, is to go away from your home country and all your relationships and spend a period of time training your mind to let go. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is move into right intention and help you guys understand that, and then we'll take a break. It won't take me very long to explain to you right intention. Right view takes a long time to understand and explain, but these others, they're pretty straightforward. So I'm going to explain to you right intention here to round out our wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. So keep reflecting on this right view, because you're going to need to establish this. Even after hearing this right now, when you go outside and you get angry, you're probably going to want to blame somebody right away. You're going to have to rework the mind. You're going to have to rewire the mind to stop doing that. You're going to need to establish right view more and more, where you see what the real problem is inside your own mind, the craving, desire, attachment. So now here's right intention with the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This is called right intention. So here, some people translate this as right intention or right thinking or right thought, because you're going to need to cultivate the intention, the thinking, the thought of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is to train the mind to have the intention or the willingness to let go, that you're not holding on to your false beliefs and false opinions. The very first false belief that you need to eliminate is that other people are causing you to be angry. You need to practice the intention of renunciation in order to accomplish right view. That the intention of renunciation is that you intend to have an open mind, and where you see wisdom, that you understand that, hey, I need to let go of this false belief that other people are making me angry. that you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to eliminate old beliefs. What you're doing is you're bringing in wisdom to realize that your beliefs are false. That if you're getting angry and frustrated, agitated and annoyed in these other discontent feelings, you have certain false beliefs in your mind. You have certain false opinions and false views. You don't have full wisdom. That's why your mind keeps experiencing these discontent feelings. So if you didn't practice the intention of renunciation, your mind would be holding on and saying, no, I know everything. I don't need to learn anything else. I'm going to hold on to everything that I'm currently doing. But if you practice the intention of renunciation, you're saying, you know what? There's some unwholesome things in here that I need to let go of. And I'm going to be willing to let those things go. When I learn new wisdom and I independently verify that wisdom, I'm going to let these things go. And that's what the intention of renunciation is, that you're willing to let go or give up the unwholesomeness in the mind's false beliefs, false perceptions of reality. And the very first one you need to let go of is that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. The intention of non-ill will, this is a double negative. Non-ill will is the same thing as goodwill. So what the Buddha is saying is you need to have the intention of goodwill. What goodwill is a genuine interest in seeing others be well. This is loving kindness, that you're going to need to have the intention or the thinking or the thought of having loving kindness towards other beings. And then the intention of harmlessness is having the intention of being disinterested in causing harm to others. Because with non-ill will, you can be loving and kind and warm and gentle to others. But when you have ill will in your mind, you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to others. So as long as you have the intention to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to others, that's going to come out. Your intentions are going to come out through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now when that comes out, you're causing harm to others, and this harm is going to come back to you. So you're going to need to have the intention of goodwill, that you're interested in seeing all beings be well, and you practice harmlessness, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to others, that you're just not interested. Right now, you don't have full wisdom of how to do that, but you need to form the intention that you're disinterested in causing harm to others. That's what the intention of harmlessness is. Because as long as you have the intention to cause harm to others, you're going to cause harm to others. And now when you cause harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. And how could you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if harm just keeps coming back to you over and over and over again? So the more harm you put out, it's just going to produce harm coming back to you. Okay, so this is the intention, this is right intention. The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. And now, just to kind of summarize the wisdom section, is right view is the Four Noble Truths, and essentially accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your own intentions, speech, and actions. Understanding that you're responsible for anything that's occurring in your life. It's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these discontent feelings. It's within your own mind. And this is the beauty of this, is that because your mind is causing it, this is why you can solve it. You have the power to eliminate these discontent feelings because it's your mind that's causing it. That's why you can get to enlightenment. You don't have to go out and train 8 billion people to do things your way. If it was everybody else that was causing these discontent feelings, you've got to train 8 billion people to do things your way. But when you can come to understand that it's your mind that's causing this, you only have to train one. You only have to train one mind. Your work just got so much simpler, right? You only have to train one, and that's going to be challenging enough. Right? Your own mind is the only mind you have 100% control over. You can't control other people's minds, but you can control yours if you learn how to do it. Then there's right intention. The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, which is loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness. This is the right thinking, the right thought, that you're willing to let go, practicing renunciation, having an open mind, that you're willing to have the intention of loving kindness or goodwill, active goodwill towards others, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and that you have the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to others. Okay? So this is the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. Any questions on this? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is take a little break here. It's basically 10:40. Let's come back at 11 o'clock, and we're going to start with the moral conduct section, and then move into the mental discipline section. I'm going to walk you through each one of these, helping you guys to understand it. Okay, so enjoy your break. We'll come back in 20 minutes. Okay, thank you guys for your questions. Okay. Okay. All right. So welcome back to you guys. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move into this moral conduct section. This moral conduct section is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And whenever you're learning moral conduct from the Buddha, understand that he's teaching you the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. They're not rules or commandments. He's not trying to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything at all. He's showing you the wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. And he's showing you the unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results. And when you learn the moral conduct, you should be learning it, reflecting on it to independently verify it, and practice it. Because you've been alive long enough that when I teach you the moral conduct, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I did that. And it did lead to unwholesome results. And oh yeah, when I don't do that, it does lead to wholesome results. You'll be able to see the truth for yourself. So this word karma, some people refer to it as karma, which is the Sanskrit version of this word. The Pali version is karma. If it translated to just one English word, I would use that. What it is cause and effect, or action and result. There's no being overseeing this. There's no entity that's overseeing it. It's not mystical or magical or anything like this. It's literally cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's your life, your decisions, and your results. And whatever decisions you make, either wise or unwise, they're either going to produce wholesome results or unwholesome results, or wholesome karma or unwholesome karma. Wise decisions produce wholesome karma. Unwise decisions produce unwholesome karma. That's what the word karma is. It's the results of your decisions. So now here's the Buddha speaking about right speech and sharing with you what would be wise to eliminate your craving, desire, attachments around your speech. He's saying, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So he's talking about 4 things here: lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. All of these are based in craving. And you can independently verify that whenever you've done these things, it's led to unwholesome results. Because the reason why people tend to lie is they want something, and if they tell the truth, they're not going to get what they want. So they lie. And now when you lie, you have the potential of getting what you want. So there's a craving that's underlying this lying, right? So if you're going to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you're going to need to eliminate your lying and tell the truth. And then slander, or gossip. This is where you're damaging or injuring someone's reputation. Maybe a person, an organization, a country, or something like this. And usually what you're doing there is you're trying to make yourself look good, trying to make yourself look so wonderful. So you might be pushing somebody else down in order to make yourself look great. The mind thinks in the unenlightened state is, if I blow out that guy's candle, my candle will be brighter. But by having both candles lit, it makes the whole room brighter, right? So if you're gossiping and slandering, you're harming someone else. At the very least, those people are going to gossip and slander you. When your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering you at the very least. At the very most, you can get murdered for gossiping and slandering. This is the unwholesome results. There's plenty of people in the world that have gossiped and slandered, and they've been murdered. I'm not telling you this is the way the world should be. What the Buddha is teaching you is the way the world is. He's explaining to you the way the world is, that if you go out there and you gossip and slander, there's the potential for significant harms to come to you. And that's your unwholesome karma, your unwholesome results of your decisions. So when you make the wise decision to not gossip and slander, then you'll avoid any of those harms. People won't gossip about you, and you won't have the ability to be injured or murdered because of gossip or slander. Harsh speech is related to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, and the way you talk with people. If you talk with people harshly, you're injuring that potential person, right? And now they're going to be interested in being harsh and aggressive with you. Again, at the very least, they're going to be harsh and aggressive with you. At the very most, you can get murdered. You can get injured. You can get in a fight. You can have all kinds of problems. You can lose relationships. You can lose your income, right? If you are harsh and aggressive with your boss, you could get fired. you can lose your income because of that, right? So these are the unwholesome results of making these unwise decisions. What frivolous speech is, also referred to as idle chatter. This is where you might just be like yada 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 yada. You're not really in a conversation. You're broadcasting to people, and now people are going to be like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to tune this person out. I don't want to hear this person anymore. They're just broadcasting to me." And they're underlying all of these four aspects of speech is craving. There's a longing, a yearning there. There's a wanting something that the mind's longing, yearning for. So you can purify your speech, cleaning up this so that you're not lying, you're not slandering, you're not having harsh speech, and you're not having frivolous speech. And this will improve your relationships. You'll notice that you'll be more influential in the community of people that you circulate around. But if you're lying, if you're gossiping and slandering, if you're being harsh and aggressive and hostile and bitter, if you're having frivolous speech or idle chatter where you're just broadcasting to people, people aren't going to be interested in being around you. They're going to push you aside. You're going to have less and less people that you're able to interact with. So you can purify this by training your mind to no longer do this. And it's the mental discipline that's going to help you to be able to do that. But then remember what I shared, that the teachings of the Buddha, that the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching. And then there's other teachings that plug into it. The 5 factors of well-spoken speech is a teaching that plugs into the Eightfold Path. This is where the Buddha gives a deeper understanding of speech, and this is ultimately what you would like to build up to, that you're practicing all 5 factors, that you're speaking at the right time, what you say is true, you speak gentle, you speak beneficially, you speak with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the right time is 3 aspects to this. Is the first one is it's unwise to interrupt people. You don't like it when people interrupt you. If you went around interrupting people, it's going to damage your relationships. So if you have a craving in there and you just want to talk, you'll interrupt people, right? Because you just want to jump in there and talk. You're listening in order to react to what they're saying. You're listening in order to respond, instead of listening to listen and understand. And then once you understand, now I will respond. Instead, you might be trying to jump in there and jump in there and jump in there and trying to get the person to know what you know. So you're going to need to speak at the right time. The other aspect of the right time is making sure your mind is ready to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated, it's not the proper time for you to talk, because your anger and frustration is going to come out during that time. And then the third aspect of speaking at the proper time is making sure that the other person you're speaking to, that it's the proper time for them to speak. If someone just came home from work, like a roommate or your parents or your life partner, and you jump on them right away with some topic that you would like to discuss with them, that's not the proper time to talk. Let them come in, put their bags down, take off their shoes, get some water, get some food. Hey, honey, is this a good time to talk? I have something important to talk to you about. They might say, no, it was a really hectic day at work. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Sure, no problem. If you don't have a craving to talk, you should be able to say, sure, no problem, we'll talk tomorrow, right? But if they say, yes, this is a good time to talk, perfect. Now it's the proper time to talk. Hey, honey, we didn't pay our rent, and we're going to be evicted in 3 days if we don't pay our rent. Right? So this is something that you would like to make sure it's the proper time for the other person to talk. If you were to just drop that on them as soon as they got home from work, this is going to lead to difficulties in your relationships. The second one here is what you say is true. That's covered in the right speech, right? That you're not lying. That's what that is. But you also need to be sure you're representing the truth. It's not just about a deliberate lie. It's about not sharing false truths. When you go out into the world, if you're sharing a bunch of conspiracy theories, unfounded things, your mind is going to really struggle with that. You're going to have difficulties in your relationships. Only talk about things that you have independently confirmed for yourself and you know to be true 100%. Then speaking gently, this is also covered in the right speech, where the Buddha is talking about refraining from harsh speech. What speaking gently is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You're going to need to pay attention to this, particularly in the English language, that you're going to need to really look at your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. In Thai language, we have all kinds of ways to show people we're being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. If you guys speak a little bit of Thai, you might know that they add the ka or the kap at the end of their language, or nakap or kapom. We speak in ways that's very gentle, very soothing, very loving in the Thai language. language, but we can replicate that in the English language. So look at your word choice, look at your tone and your tempo, and you'll be able to improve the way that you interact with people by speaking gently. Speaking beneficially is ensuring that you're not having that idle chatter, that frivolous speech, that yada, 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 yada. It's not always about the topic necessarily that you're talking about. It's ensuring that you're speaking purposefully, that you're clear and you're concise, that you're speaking in a way that's beneficial, purposeful speech, instead of just yada, 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 yada. If you're stumbling through your words and you're stumbling through what it is that you have to say, the other person is having to really work to understand what it is that you're sharing. You would like to speak in a way that it doesn't require somebody else to do a lot of work to figure out what it is that you're saying. That's what it means to speak beneficially. It's not necessarily the topic, it's how you speak, that you speak in a way that people can understand you and they don't have to do a lot of work to figure out what it is that you're sharing. That it's not just self-serving, that it's helpful for others too. Then speaking with a mind of loving kindness, this is that active goodwill, that genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of loving kindness is inner hate. If you were to speak with inner hate towards people, this is going to damage your relationships. So here, these are the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Speaking at the right time, what you say is true, is gentle, is beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And when you're speaking this way, you'll be developing something that we refer to in Thai as barami. This is a Thai word, barami. It means the one who people listen to. You can establish this in your community, that when you speak in this way and you communicate in this way, you will establish barami, where you will be the one who people listen to. Because when you go around the world and you're harsh and aggressive and hostile and you're lying and you're slandering and gossiping people and you have frivolous speech and you're not gentle and you're speaking with a mind of inner hate, nobody's going to be interested in listening to you. But when you can speak in this way, you'll be very influential in your family, in your work life, among your friends and neighbors and people like this. People will listen to you. Not the first time, not the first week, not the first month. But when you can speak this way for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, gradually improving your conduct, you'll find that people will be very interested in talking with you and understanding what it is that you have to say, because you'll be influential. So you're going to need to gradually train your mind to do this. In relationships where you have craving, desire, attachment, you'll find it more difficult to speak gently. This is why you're maybe bitter, harsh, and hostile with the people who are close to you, because you have craving, desire, attachment in those relationships. So that's why the mental discipline is part of the Eightfold Path. That's going to help you with right speech. So your speech right now, even though you learned this intellectually, you're not going to be able to go outside and snap your fingers and instantly do this. You're going to need to gradually build this up over time. But this is the goal. This is what you're working towards. Now, we refer to this as right speech. That's what the Buddha taught, is right speech. Because during his lifetime, that's all there was speech. But nowadays, we might consider this right communication. Because there's all kinds of ways that we communicate. It's not just speech anymore. It's text messages, email, social media posts, all kinds of ways that we interact with people through communicating. So if you went into a job interview and you spoke in a way that was with right speech, but after the interview, they looked at your social media and you were bitter, harsh, and hostile and aggressive, you're probably not going to get the job. So you would like all your communication, whether it's text message, social media, email, or anything, to be practicing these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So if you're really angry and hostile and bitter, and you go over to your computer and you start pounding out an email, just your anger is going to be coming out. That's all that's going to be coming out. And if you press send on that, you've just made an unwise decision that's going to produce unwholesome results in your life, right? So if you pound out an email, hit save, right? Don't hit send, hit save. Come back to it a few hours later, a few days later, and look at it and be like, oh, wow, I was really angry. I'm not sending that email. That's not the right email to be sending, right? This is how you can protect your mind and protect yourself. Ultimately, you'll get to the point where that anger isn't there anymore, and you'll be able to write emails all the time that are very straightforward and very kind and very loving. But in the meantime, Practice these 5 factors with all your communication, and that's what's going to improve your relationships. In this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, I share a lot of details on communication. I go through each one of these 5 factors and explain exactly what they are, and I give you examples. So I encourage you to read the first book and all the books. The volume 1 under the Eightfold Path, you'll see right speech, and I explain it. And there you'll see me talk about polite, kind, friendly, respectful speech, but you'll also see me go through each one of those that I just described in detail in the book. So you have that as a reference, because you're going to need to gain more wisdom and fully understand what these factors are so that you can implement them into your life. Then there's right action. Here the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So what he's talking about here is bodily actions that cause harm in the world. And if you cause harm with your bodily actions, harm is going to come back to you. He's giving you 3, but he's not giving you a complete exhaustive list, because he wouldn't be able to give you every single thing that you could cause harm with your body. For example, he didn't say, don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. Well, that's a bodily action that's causing harm, but airplanes didn't exist during his lifetime. So he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list. Here he's giving you 3 major impactful ones. But if you understand what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma, you can apply this to all bodily actions. Right? If you walk down the street and you stomped on people's feet, you're probably going to get punched, right? Somebody's probably going to push you or punch you or do something or yell or holler at you because you're walking down the street stomping on people's feet. So the Buddha is giving you 3 major impactful ones: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So you can apply this to all bodily actions. One of the things that I like to share here is that sexual misconduct, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow. The Buddha explains this in the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts plugs into the Eightfold Path, and he gives a very detailed teaching on what sexual misconduct is. But just as a heads up, this doesn't include same-gender relationships. When you see what he describes as sexual misconduct, he describes things like rape or sex with minors, sex outside of relationships that you're currently involved in. All these kinds of things and others cause harm. But 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other, they're not causing harm to anybody. So if you or somebody you know prefer same-gender relationships, this is completely normal. The Buddha was aware of it 2,500 years ago. He talks about it in his teachings, and he never describes it as harmful because it's not causing harm, because there's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex. Nowadays, there's some people in the world that are angry and frustrated and irritated when they see somebody having sex or see a same-gender relationship, but that's because of their craving. Their lack of wisdom, they crave for every female to be with a male and every male to be with a female. It's just not possible. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, not every male is going to be interested in being with a female, and not every female is going to be interested in being with a male. It just never happens throughout the entire human history. Same-gender relationships isn't new. It's been going on since the beginning of time, because the universal truth of impermanence has been happening since the beginning of time. So since the very first beings were starting to have sex, there's some that have sex with same gender and some that have sex with opposite gender. It's completely normal, right? But unfortunately, there's some people in the world that don't understand this. So this is how wise the Buddha was, that 2,500 years ago, he understood this. 2,500 years ago. Nowadays, we have people that don't understand this, but he understood it 2,500 years ago, right? That's how wise he truly was. Okay, so this is all about not causing harm through your bodily actions. And there's many different things. If you've been around Thai people for any amount of time, you might see them when they walk in the public, they will kind of like hold their clothes even up against their body because they're not interested in their baggy clothes like hitting up against somebody else. They will very intentionally walk through a crowd, ensuring that they're not bumping into people. But of course, you might occasionally bump into somebody and you just apologize, right? And that's how you clean up your karma. Whereas if you just bloom, 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 bloom through a crowd and you didn't care, you're going to have problems. But if you intentionally walk through a crowd and you're looking to not cause harm, then if you happen to bump into somebody, you can just say, apologize, right? And this cleans it up for you. So this is all about not causing harm with your bodily actions. And there's other bodily actions besides this one. The Buddha teaches lots of different bodily actions. He teaches about killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, but he also teaches about substances that cause heedlessness. He teaches about gambling and a whole bunch of other things as well. So you'll see throughout his teachings that he teaches some other things, but you can apply this within your own life. Like I said, even walking down the aisle of an airplane, you know not to drag your suitcase and bump into people because it would be unwise. You're going to experience some harshness and hostility coming back to you. You can independently reflect on this. Just like when we were talking about right speech, you can independently reflect on this too, right? You can look at conversations where your conversation didn't go well, where there was some unwholesome result. You can see that you and or the other person wasn't practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. If you miss even one of these 5 factors, there's the potential for the conversation to go awry. So if you think about a recent conversation where it didn't go well, look at the 5 factors. Which ones weren't you practicing? You'll be able to figure it out. That's how you independently reflect and see that this is the truth. But also look at conversations that did go well. You can independently reflect on this and say, oh yeah, I was practicing all 5. Or that other person was practicing all 5. You didn't understand what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech were, but you happened to be practicing them. And that's why the conversation went well. But now when you know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you can intentionally practice them and make sure that all your conversations go well. And then you'll just get better and better at doing this. And the same thing is true with right action. You can intentionally practice where your bodily actions aren't causing harm to others. And now you can ensure that you always have wholesome results, that there's no harm coming back to you because you understand the natural law of karma. And then there's something called right livelihood. This is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. This is how you acquire an income. The Buddha teaches that if you cause harm through your livelihood, this is going to produce harm in your life too. So here in the Eightfold Path, he says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Here he's just talking very generally and very broadly. But if you look in other parts of his teachings, he explains to you what right livelihood is. There's 2 folds of purification. Here I'm going to teach you the first fold of purification. The first fold is what I'm going to share with you here, is that he teaches to eliminate business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. If you're doing any of these livelihoods, you're causing harm to others, and now this harm can come back to you in the way that you conduct your livelihood. You can actually independently reflect on this, just like we have the others. You can take each one of these and you can see where it would cause harm, and then this harm comes back to you. So for example, if I stood on the street corner and I sold crystal meth or I sold cocaine into the community, people are going out and they're stealing and they're robbing and they're doing all kinds of things in order to give me money. I'm causing harm in the community by selling these substances that cause heedlessness. So this is why standing on the street corner, I can very easily get beat up. I can get robbed. I can get murdered, right? I can get addicted to my own substances. I can get arrested by the police. That's why those things occur, because you're causing harm to the community and now harm is going to come to you. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. It's functioning at a much higher level than the human laws. The human laws say, yeah, you can't stay on the street corner and sell cocaine and heroin. In most places, they don't allow you to do that, and the police would arrest you for that. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. We're talking about all substances that cause heedlessness. If you were to work in a liquor store, for example, the government isn't going to arrest you for that. The government, a human law being imperfect, they say, yeah, go ahead, you can work in the liquor store and you can earn your money. But if you were a cashier at a liquor store, this is actually quite unwise, because these places usually get robbed. People will come in, they will beat you up, they will steal your money, they will potentially murder you, right? At the very least, you're going to be dealing with a clientele that's intoxicated. You're going to constantly have to be dealing with intoxicated people, like a bartender or at a liquor store or something like this. So you're just making decisions that are producing unwholesome results in your life. So you could go through each one of these and you could see how they're causing harm, and therefore harm's going to come to you. The next level of purification, which is still part of the first fold of purification, is here. The Buddha is describing how you conduct your livelihood. Scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. So for example, say I was a politician. It's not one of those 5 livelihoods that we were just talking about, but if I was scheming, if I was corrupt in my job, this is going to cause me problems, because now maybe I'm 10 or 15 years into my career and I've been getting away with this corruption for a long time, but now people find out about it and now they won't reelect me. And now I'm struggling because I've based my livelihood off of being a politician, and now I can't be a politician anymore because of my scheming and my corruption. Or say I was a police officer or a doctor or something like this. Again, it's not one of those 5 livelihoods that the Buddha was describing, but if you're scheming and corrupt, it's going to produce difficulties in your life. Same thing with flattery. What flattery is like insincere comments where you're just trying to get people to buy from you. You're just trying to get people to give you money for whatever it is that you're selling. So if you had insincere comments to your clientele, they would sort that out. They would figure that out. And then over time, you're not going to be able to have a clientele because the word's going to spread that you're not on the up and up. And now less and less people are going to be interested in patronizing your business. So you're not interested in just giving insincere flattery comments in order to get people to buy things from you. This would be unwise. Hinting is like not being clear and direct in your work. When you're working, you should be very clear, concise, and precise. Like say you're on a project team and you need to go in and talk to the boss and give them an update on the work that you're doing. You would like to be clear and concise and precise, not hinting and kind of beating around the bush kind of thing. You would like to be clear and concise about your work. Then belittling, this is like degrading and diminishing either your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. If you were belittling people, this is going to cause you harm. Even you're talking to your customers, if you're belittling other people that are in your same field, they're not going to like that. It's going to look bad on you, and you're going to find that you're not going to be able to sustain your life through a livelihood because you're talking down and degrading other people. What pursuing gain with gain is, this is like just taking a job for the sake of money, that you don't care about the product or the service. You're just doing it for money. You just have a craving for money. If you've ever done this, where you just take a job for the paycheck and that's all you care about, you probably feel very unmotivated and unenthused doing that work. And in that situation, how could you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you go somewhere 8 hours a day that you just don't like, you don't care about, you are just trying to get the money? You would like to feel good about the work that you're doing. You like to feel motivated and encouraged and enthused. So if you're just pursuing money and that's it, that craving is going to burn out, and eventually you're going to experience a lack of motivation and a lack of ambition and enthusiasm. So what the Buddha is helping you to get to is get to a livelihood where you're encouraged and you're motivated and you're enthused and you have ambition, that you enjoy the work that you do. By the time you get to a right livelihood, you will thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. You won't feel miserable. The word work, it's almost a 4-letter word, right? Like people are like, oh, I gotta work, right? But you can get to a point where whatever your livelihood is, you feel good about that work. You feel good about the things that you're doing, that you, even if you didn't get paid for it, you would probably still do it because you enjoy it that much. And now you're going to a place 8 hours a day, perhaps, that you thoroughly enjoy, that you enjoy the work that you're doing. So that's what you would ultimately like to get to. And that's going to require you to think about the type of work that you enjoy and that you're enthused about, that you're not just pursuing gain with gain, right? That you're not just doing it for the money. So this is right livelihood. So now a little bit of a summary, and then I'll open up to questions. What right speech is not causing harm through your verbal conduct, ensuring all your communication, such as verbal, text, chat, post, emails, all of this is harmless. Using those 5 factors of well-spoken speech and that baseline part of the right speech that the Buddha talks about in the Eightfold Path. So eliminating lying, eliminating slander, eliminating harsh speech and frivolous speech. Using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, speaking at the right time, what you say is true, is gentle, is beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And you're going to need to gradually develop that in all your communication. Right action is ensuring you're not causing harm through your bodily actions, that all bodily actions should be harmless. Then right livelihood is ensuring that whatever decisions you make to sustain your life, that you're not causing harm to other beings through those decisions, that it should be harmless. Okay, so this is the moral conduct. So once you understand right view, that's where the Buddha would start you first. The next thing he would do is help you understand moral conduct. Because as long as you're putting out harm through your moral conduct, you're just going to have to keep dealing with that harm coming back to you. So if you can shut down your harmful moral conduct, this will drastically improve your life because there's less and less unwholesome things coming back to you. But as long as you're out there meditating and you're not paying attention to your moral conduct, you're just causing harm. And this harm's just going to keep coming back to you. So that's why you can't meditate your way to enlightenment. That's why you can't sit under a tree for 2 years and meditate and just instantly get to enlightenment. It's not an instantaneous thing because you need to gradually improve your moral conduct and gradually start practicing in a way that you're not causing harm to others. And now your relationships will improve over time. You can't just instantly snap into this. And that's why you can't do it unintentionally. You just can't accidentally get to enlightenment because you need to improve your moral conduct and get to a point where you're intentionally practicing these things. And now when you're intentionally practicing these things, more and more your relationships blossom and they really improve. Okay, so any questions on the moral conduct? It was on there for a second. I heard it.
Maybe it's, you said that tomorrow you will talk more about sexual conduct and so on.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
But you said if someone has a partnership, right, has a relationship with another person, and they have sex, but they don't pretend the other one and so on, then it's they don't do harm, so that's okay. But isn't it craving to have a partner, to have sex with them? Isn't it also craving, and isn't it also holding you back from the path to enlightenment?
So having sex is a sensual desire. You can get all the way up to the second stage of enlightenment and still be having a sexual relationship. And in the second stage of enlightenment, your discontentedness will be significantly reduced, but you still are going to have discontentedness. You could do all the other work on the path to enlightenment, and if you're still having sex, you're going to have discontentedness because in some situations you're going to get sex and you're going to feel great, have pleasant feelings. In other situations you can't get it and you're going to be agitated. So in order to get to the third and the fourth stage of enlightenment where the mind's actually enlightened, you'll ultimately need to eliminate sexual contact. But when or if you decide to do that is your choice, because depending on where you are in life, you may not be ready to do that. That might not be something that you're interested in doing, especially if you're young. You might decide that you'd like to still have sex. But at some point, if you get to that second stage of enlightenment, you'll start seeing more peace and more joy come into the mind, and you'll start appreciating that more than the sex. There's actually something in the world that is better than sex, and it's called enlightenment. But when we're in the unenlightened state, we don't understand that because we don't understand what enlightenment is. So if you work your way up to the second stage of enlightenment and you're starting to see all this peace and joy come into the mind, you're going to start appreciating that more than this temporary thing of sex where you feel great for an hour or you feel great for a day or two. Because more and more the qualities of enlightenment are going to be shining through, and you're going to start noticing 5 days, 5 weeks of feeling really great. And then you have sex, and sure, you're going to feel great for a couple of hours or a couple of days, but then you're going to feel painful feelings when you can't get it anymore. So having a partner, you can actually have a partner and still be enlightened, because just having a relationship isn't going to be a craving. You can get to the point where you have lots of relationships. You're just not attached to them. But if you're having sex, that is a craving. You can't get to enlightenment while still having sex, but you can get to the second stage of enlightenment. Some people might hang out there for a while, maybe have their family, do whatever they're going to do, or just be single. And then at some point they might decide, hey, I would like to go further on this, and now I'm going to extinguish my sexual cravings and get to enlightenment.
But is it stopping a bit the progress if I have it? Or if I would say, okay, but I don't do it because I want to progress on my way, on my path. Is this a better way? Would it be a better way? Because if I still have sex, it's still can cause me harm. Or
if you're interested in getting to enlightenment in this life and you're willing to let go of sex at this point, yeah, that would be ideal. Like, work to get rid of sex. But some people may not be at that point in their life, because remember, the way that you eliminate a craving, desire, attachment is the first way is you can distance yourself from it and then train your mind to eliminate it. And that's what you would do with sex, is you need to distance yourself from it and train your mind to eliminate it. But another way is to fulfill it. So if somebody has an overwhelming urge to have sex, sometimes just have a lot of sex and then extinguish it. If you've ever been in that situation where maybe you and a partner for a couple of weeks were just having lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sex, you eventually got to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want it for a while. This is like too much. It's kind of like when we were a child, we just thought ice cream was the best thing ever. And it was just like ice cream, can't get enough ice cream. Let me eat as much ice cream as I can get. But now it's like, I don't really need to have ice cream. It's like, it's okay. But with sex, you're going to need to eliminate it 100%, where by the time you get to enlightenment, you can have ice cream. That's not a craving. It can be a craving. It was a craving when we were a child, perhaps. But then as we aged, we're like, been there, done that, had enough ice cream. I can take it and leave it now. With sex, one of the ways to extinguish it in some cases is just to go do it a whole lot. But you need to be really careful with that, because it can take you down a path that makes it very difficult for you to ever emerge out of that, right? So if you're at a point in your life right now where you're like, you know what, the most important thing to me is enlightenment, and I'm not interested in allowing anything to get in the way, then yeah, go ahead, get rid of your sex now, and that would be ideal for you. That's going to produce more benefits for you, because getting rid of that craving, desire, attachment will make all the others that much easier for you to let go of. Yep, you're welcome. Okay. Let me see if you guys have any questions online. Remember, you guys can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to answer your question there. Let's see. I'm not seeing any questions online. So let's move into the next part, which is our mental discipline section. We've just made our way through wisdom and moral conduct. Now we're moving into the mental discipline section. This is going to help you to understand right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the words of the Buddha, and then I'm going to break it down for you and help you to understand what this is and how to practice it. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So here he's talking about 4 things that you're going to need to apply effort to actually accomplish. You're going to need to apply the energy and effort to accomplish these things. These 4 things that he's talking about are preventing unwholesome mental states from arising, any unwholesome mental states that are currently in your mind, that you abandon those, that any wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind, that you bring those into your mind, And any wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind, that you support them, encourage them, and bring them to full growth and full perfection. So I'm going to give you some examples to help you understand this. So the first one, where he's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. Right now, you probably don't have the idea of killing another human being in your mind. It's the farthest thing from your mind. You're not thinking about killing another human being. That's an unwholesome quality if you had that in your mind. But you don't have that in your mind because you're not interested in killing another human being. And what the Buddha is saying is apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into your mind, because it's an unwholesome mental state, right? So prevent that. So there's going to be potentially this one and lots of other things that are just the farthest thing from your mind right now. And the Buddha is saying prevent those things from ever coming into the mind. Then there's abandoning unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. So there are certain unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. And the Buddha is saying apply the effort to eliminate those from your mind. So some examples might be, if you're in a current relationship and you're thinking about going outside and you're having a craving to go outside the relationship to have sex, you know that this is going to cause you harm, and it's going to cause your partner harm, and it's going to cause other people harm. So the Buddha is saying apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind, because it's an unwholesome mental state. Or anger or frustration or agitation. If you notice that this is coming up in the mind, the Buddha is saying apply the effort to abandon that and eliminate that out of the mind. Number 3, produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn about on this path that are not currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind. Generosity is one of those. Perhaps you might not have generosity in your mind. Maybe you find it to be challenging to be generous and share with other people. Maybe you hold on to things very tightly. Well, when you learn about generosity and how important it is for your journey to enlightenment, and you're going to need this in order to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this generosity into your mind. That's what the Buddha is describing here. Or say something like compassion. Compassion is like concern for the misfortune of others, where the opposite of compassion is where you're indifferent to other people's misfortunes. Well, if you notice that you could care less about what happens to other people, and you don't have the wholesome quality of compassion in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this into your mind and practice it. That's what this third one is any wholesome mental states that you learn about on the path to enlightenment that are not currently in your mind, you're going to have to apply the effort to bring those into the mind. And then the fourth one is any wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind, to maintain them and not allow them to fade away. Work to increase their growth. Bring them to full growth and full perfection. Some examples might be loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You might be pretty loving and kind. You might have loving kindness, active goodwill towards other beings. But in some situations, you hate people. You're angry at people in some situations. That's because your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection. Because you have some in some cases, but in other cases you don't have it. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this loving kindness up in the mind and maintain that and support it and have this active goodwill towards all beings. Bring it to full growth and full perfection and development. Or sympathetic joy. What this is the opposite of jealousy or envy. This is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So this is the opposite of jealousy. So in some situations, maybe you're like, you got a new house. That's wonderful. Congratulations. But maybe when you're at work and you apply for a job, for a promotion, and your colleague applies for that same job, and they get the job instead of you, you might be jealous. You might be envious. You might be resentful towards them. This is because your sympathetic joy has not been brought to full growth and full perfection and development. You're going to need to apply the effort to apply this in your life so that when things are happening for other people, be joyful for their success, even if you didn't contribute to it. Okay, so this is right effort. And I'm using just some examples here. These are going to be unique to you. The unwholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind is going to be unique to you. The unwholesome qualities that are in your mind right now, it's going to be unique to you. The wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, that's unique to you. And the wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, that's also unique to you. So you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. This is right effort. And what's allowing you to do this and applying right effort is the next step, right mindfulness. You wouldn't be able to apply right effort without right mindfulness. So same thing, I'm going to read this to you and then I'll teach it to you. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So what he's talking about here is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. When you first start learning about mindfulness, you might just think about it more generally and more broadly as awareness of mind. That's the way that most people start, is just think about right mindfulness as awareness of mind. Because in the unenlightened state, you tend to not be aware of your mind. That you just kind of go through the day. You don't really think about your thoughts and your ideas and the things, the decisions that you're making and how those are impacting other people. You don't really think about those things. But what you're going to need to start doing is you're going to start needing to be aware of what's going on in your mind. What's the thoughts going on? What are the feelings? What are the decisions that you're going to make? And how are they going to impact other people? You're going to need to start being reflective and looking inward and having awareness of your mind. This word mindfulness is used nowadays quite common in general language, but understand that most people aren't using it in the same way that the Buddha used it. Some people might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's not the way that we're using mindfulness in the teachings of the Buddha. What we're using it for is awareness of mind. So while other people might use it as careful, and they're just replacing the word careful with mindful, in reality, you would like to be practicing awareness of mind, that you're aware of what's going on in your own mind. Then you've got the 4 foundations of mindfulness, is which you would really like to develop. This is what you would like to develop on a day-to-day basis, that you're understanding the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. You're going to need awareness of all these things. What the Buddha is providing you is he's explaining to you the life cycle that discontentedness takes as you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind. When you experience contact through your 6 sense bases, if you have a craving, desire, attachment, before the feeling becomes a feeling in your mind, there's going to be a bodily sensation, right? Before you get angry, there's a bodily sensation. There's like tingling in the body, there's tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, you have heat in the face, you have pressure in your skull. There's some bodily sensations you may or may not be aware of right now. But you're going to need to start being aware of these bodily sensations. We're not talking about an itch, right? We're not talking about physical pain. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the bodily sensations associated with your cravings, desires, attachments. Because what the bodily sensations are in relationship to this discontentedness that is arising, this is an early warning system alerting you, hey, you're about to get angry. Hey, you're about to get frustrated. Hey, you're about to get shy. Hey, you're about to feel guilty or lonely or bored or some other feeling. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is to apply right effort to cut off and let go of that bodily sensation as a bodily sensation before it becomes a feeling in the mind. Because as soon as the mind experiences some contact, your mind's going to be like, oh, I'm going to form a conditioned feeling. It's sunny outside. It's sunny outside. I want to get happy. I want to get happy. I want to get excited. And you say, nope. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you form that conditioned feeling. Oh, that person over there just spit on the street, and I don't like it when people spit on the street. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get angry. Nope, I'm not going to let you get angry. you would like to cut it off as a bodily sensation. So that bodily sensation is an early warning system for you to help you understand that, hey, you're about to get a discontent feeling. You're about to get a conditioned feeling. And now you can rewire the mind. You can train your mind to not do that by applying right effort. If you have right mindfulness, you can apply right effort and cut that off and let it go. And you essentially rewire the mind. You're not suppressing the feeling here. You're actually cutting it off before it ever becomes a feeling, right? And if you cut these off enough times, you will eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. You will eliminate any kind of longing and yearning, and you'll get to the point where there won't be any discontentedness arising because you've completely purified the mind. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, and it does become a feeling, because it will. You guys, your mind's not trained well yet, so you are going to have conditioned feelings. Cut it off there and let it go. And then if you miss it there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. Have you ever been agitated for a few days or a week or two? Of course you have. Come on. Of course you have. Don't lie, right? Of course you've been agitated for a week or two, or annoyed, or some other discontent feeling. That's because you didn't understand this. You didn't understand this wisdom. There was bodily sensations that you didn't cut off and let go of. It became a feeling, and then it affected the condition of your mind for a few hours, for a few days, for a week or two. And then it formed and fed what is called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind that is now the mind's holding on. So, for example, when we were born, we didn't have ill will in our mind. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? Because we didn't have ill will when we were first born. But as we were growing up, we had certain cravings. Those cravings got fulfilled in some situations, and we got pleasant feelings. And in other situations, they didn't get fulfilled. We got painful feelings. We got angry. We got frustrated. And then we ultimately formed this mental object, this deeply rooted container of ill will. So when mom and dad bought you chocolate and ice cream, you got so happy and so excited. But then at some point, mom and dad said, no, you can't have that chocolate and ice cream. Oh, you're the worst mom ever. You're the worst dad ever. You got angry and frustrated. You blamed it on them. You thought they were the ones causing your painful feelings, when in reality, it was your own cravings. It was your own desires. So over time, your mind has collected up these mental objects, those 10 fetters. All those 10 fetters are mental objects. These are the pollutions that are in your mind. They're deeply rooted in your mind. So you're going to need to be aware of all of these things so that you can catch it sooner and sooner as a bodily sensation. Okay, so this is the right mindfulness. Now, what's helping you to do this? What's helping you to have mindfulness and apply right effort? Because without right mindfulness, you couldn't apply right effort. But without this next one, you wouldn't have mindfulness. This next one is right concentration. This is what's going to help you to develop right mindfulness. I'm not going to read this for you because what the Buddha is describing here is he's describing the jhanas. He's describing the qualities of mind that you're going to experience as you're putting together the whole Eightfold Path. So he's explaining the results of the Eightfold Path. You're going to need to learn this at some point, but right now isn't that time. What I'm going to teach you is how to practice right concentration. Because in other parts of the Buddhist teachings, he's explaining to you how to practice right concentration. So here, what he's teaching you as part of practicing right concentration is to develop a meditation practice and to practice singleness of mind. This is how you develop right concentration, or the focus and the clarity of your mind. That you're going to need a breathing mindfulness meditation practice and a loving kindness meditation practice. And you would like to develop this 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more, gradually training your mind. And it's going to take gradual training to build up to that. Right now, you might be at 10 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. But gradually, slowly but surely, 6 months, a year, 2 years, you gradually build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more. And this is what's going to help you to build awareness of mind and be able to cut off and let go of cravings, desires, attachments. That's why in the meditation, when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you cut it off and bring it back. Cut it off and bring it back. Cut it off and bring it back. 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation, you're having to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, your mind doesn't want to let go. It wants to hold on. It's craving permanence. It's clinging to things. So this breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to let go. And I'm going to teach you some more about that this afternoon when we come back from lunch. And the loving kindness meditation is training your mind to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, all the frustration and agitation that's in the mind. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind. What this is that you focus on just one thing at a time. That if you've been taught to multitask, your mind isn't actually multitasking. You're doing one thing at a time, but your mind is rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing. So if you're talking on the phone, watching TV, and eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all those three things at one time. You're talking to mom for like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and then your mind's rapidly cycling to the TV, and you're doing that for however many seconds, and then your mind's rapidly cycling to the eating of the sandwich. And now your mind's bouncing around and bouncing around and bouncing around. And if you do this all day long at work, when you get home, it's hard to sleep. You have a hard time sleeping. Your mind is overactive. You have anxiety, you have stress, because your mind is constantly thinking about all these different things. So you're going to need to train your mind to do just one thing at a time. So that if you're washing dishes, you're just washing dishes. Or if you're eating, you're just eating. Or if you're walking down the street, you're just walking down the street. You essentially train the mind to be in the middle. And you get this groove where your mind is just always focused. If you took a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grinded the steel rod back and forth on the wood, when you first start, it's going to bounce around a lot, right? That's what your mind's going to do. It's going to bounce around a lot. But if you grind it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in the same spot, developing singleness of mind, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove in the wood. And then when the steel rod pops out, you're going to know it's popped out. You're going to be able to bring it right back. But ultimately, if you grind that steel rod back and forth on the wood long enough, you'll get a deep enough groove where it won't pop out anymore, because the steel rod has been in the groove for so long, grinding it back and forth, that it won't pop out. So your mind is the same way. If you train your mind to be in the present moment, focused on singleness of mind, eventually you'll get to the point where it's so focused and so clear, it'll just always stay in the present moment. It won't be focusing on the next thing. So when you're in a business meeting and your mind starts wandering, you cut that off, right? You're in a business meeting, you have your mindfulness and awareness of mind, you realize your mind's daydreaming, you apply right effort and cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're washing the dishes and you're noticing your mind's wandering, you cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're listening to a teacher teach at a temple like this, and you're thinking about lunch and how great lunch is going to be, you cut that off and you bring it back. And you're like, no, I'm right here. I'm going to listen to this, right? This is impermanent. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking, and then we'll go eat lunch. And when we're eating lunch, we'll just eat lunch. But if you're eating lunch and you're watching a YouTube video, or you're searching on social media, your mind's flipping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you might be doing that because you're bored and you're lonely while you're eating, but you're not solving the problem, because the problem is your craving. If you can't sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes and eat while being alone, and you can't be with your own thoughts, if you don't enjoy being with yourself, why would anybody enjoy being with you, right? So you're going to need to learn how to be alone and enjoy that. Right? So if you always have to have a YouTube video playing or social media going on, you're not eliminating the true problem. You're just allowing the craving to continue to exist in the mind. By getting rid of the YouTube, by getting rid of the social media while you're eating and just focus on the eating, now you can train your mind to not have craving. Because with craving, desire, attachment in the mind, the grass is always greener on the other side. You're going to always want something that you don't have. You need to train your mind to be content in the present moment. That if I'm eating, I'm eating. If I'm washing dishes, I'm washing dishes. If I'm in a business meeting, I'm just in a business meeting. I'm not wandering about with my mind, daydreaming about something else. So this is how you do it with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and practicing singleness of mind. This is what will produce the right concentration. And the more concentrated your mind becomes through training it in this way, now it'll just stay there all the time. You'll just always be focused and concentrated. So this is the moral conduct section of the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path, where you're practicing right effort, where you're taking initiative to eliminate certain unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Right mindfulness is having awareness of the mind with the 4 foundations of mindfulness and developing that slowly but surely. And then right concentration is practicing meditation and develop singleness of mind until you start experiencing the jhanas. The jhanas are these 4 preliminary phases that the mind experiences before it gets to the first stage of enlightenment. And when your mind moves into those jhanas, your mind will be in that jhana all the way through. The qualities that you experience in the jhanas, it's not just in meditation, it's outside of meditation too. In fact, even when you move into the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment, those qualities of the jhanas are actually still there. There's some certain unwholesome qualities that fade away, but the wholesome qualities that you experience in the jhanas, they're actually still there even when your mind's enlightened. So these jhanas are something that are flickering. It's an indication for you that you're putting together the Eightfold Path really well. And that's where you start focusing on eliminating the 10 fetters. But all the while, you've already been working to eliminate the 10 fetters. Right? Because even things like eliminating certain speech and certain actions, you're eliminating sensual desire and ill will. When you see conceit coming up in your mind, when you have judgment and arrogance and ego towards others, you can apply right effort to cut that off. So with your mindfulness, if you see your ego coming up, you can apply right effort and cut that off and let it go. And more, when you restrain the mind and you pull it back, it won't keep pulling. It won't keep pulling. This is how you purify the mind. That when you see the mind pulling with its craving, desire, attachments, you cut it off. You restrain the mind. It's kind of like a horse. You pull on the reins and you pull it back. The Buddha describes it like a post and a pillar. If you have a bunch of animals that are tied to this post and pillar, they're going to be pulling in all these different opposite directions. But when they get to the end of their rope and they get yanked back and yanked back and yanked back, eventually the animals are going to sit down by that post or pillar. They're going to stop pulling because they realize that it's unwise to keep pulling because they keep getting, their neck keeps getting tighter and tighter around this rope. So your mind is the same way. Each time it keeps pulling and pulling, each time you keep seeing these unwholesome qualities, if you keep cutting it off and cutting it off and cutting it off and yanking your mind back, eventually you'll get to the point where your mind doesn't pull anymore. And it just sits there and it's peaceful and it's joyful and you're content in the present moment. Okay, so this is rounding out the Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. You're going to need to revisit this multiple times. This might be your first introduction to it, but you're going to need to revisit it multiple times and dial this into your life closer and closer. Really focus on right view at the beginning and then your moral conduct as well. But all the while be working on your mental discipline too. So it's not that you master one before you move into the next. You're actually practicing all 8 at the same time. And you're dialing these in closer and closer into your life. Okay, any questions on this? Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Yes, sometimes if I try, sometimes in the past I also try to practice this letting go, but sometimes something is really strong and I think, wait, I do 1 minute, I dwell 1 minute in that and then I let go. But you would say immediately just let it go, right? It's the best way.
Yes, but your mind's not going to be able to easily do that early on because it's not very disciplined, right? You don't have this mental discipline very well developed. So that's why you're proactively training your mind with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. And you're trying to accumulate more and more of those benefits so that then in the present moment, you'll be able to cut that off and let it go. So like right now, for example, if your mom was in a terrible car accident and close to death, you probably wouldn't be able to cut that off and let it go because it's a deeply held attachment. But if you really wanted a piece of chocolate and you went into 7-Eleven and they were out of stock and you noticed some agitation coming up, you could probably cut that off and let it go because it's a lighter attachment perhaps. But as you get disciplined, your mind gets more and more trained with proactively training with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity, you'll eliminate all attachments in your mind. But you need to gradually build up to that. It's kind of like peeling an onion, that when you first start peeling an onion, those outer layers come off really easily. But then when you get deeper and deeper into the onion, it's kind of harder to pull it back. So the core of the onion whatever, by the time you get to that first, second, third stage of enlightenment, whatever attachments that are still around in your mind, those are the more deeply held ones. Those are the ones that are going to be the hardest for you to let go of. But yeah, they're a lot deeper. But with the accumulation of your training over multiple years, it will become, easier and easier, because you would have let go of some of these lighter ones, and you would have seen the more peace coming into the mind, and more calmness and more joy coming into the mind as you're letting these things go. So you become more dedicated and diligent to let go of those harder ones. But those ones towards the end are oftentimes the most challenging to let go of. Yeah, just turn on your mic. You can ask as many questions as you like. I don't see anybody else having questions.
Okay. Yeah, and you talked about feelings. That right? If you have a feeling, you can see it, and then you can cut off.
The batteries are out again. You got a very impermanent microphone there. See, you're not getting frustrated, right? Are you getting frustrated? Yeah, you don't have a craving, right? You don't have an attachment. You realize, like, this microphone is impermanent. So, yeah, just get another microphone.
Yeah, you talked about feelings. And there are other techniques, for example, body scan, to know more your feelings. What do you think about a technique like this?
Yeah, I've never done any of those techniques. I know that's what they teach in the Vipassana retreats, I think, is the body scanning. I suspect what they're trying to do is they're trying to guide you in developing the awareness of the bodily sensations, which is the first foundation of mindfulness. But I don't know, because I never needed to do those things.
Okay, so best to try out for myself, and if it feels good. Or would you say the Buddha didn't teach that? So it is.
I have not seen anywhere in his teachings where he taught body scanning. I just haven't seen it anywhere in his teachings. There's people today that do this body scanning. I never needed to do it. I haven't seen anywhere that the Buddha taught to do it, so I don't do it. I never needed it. But I gained this awareness of the bodily sensations. The way I did that is through meditation. That's the way he teaches you, through breathing mindfulness meditation. That, like, say you have an itch in your body while you're meditating, you can see the itch arise, it changes, and it fades away. Rather than, I have to itch it, right? You can just arise, change, fade away, be unaffected by it, stay focused on the breath. So now in daily life, you start becoming aware of those bodily sensations more and more associated with the discontentedness. But you can pay attention to this. If you've been taught body scanning and you're using it, does it help you to observe these bodily sensations associated with craving, desire, attachment? And if it does, then maybe that's something that you use. But for me, I never needed that, never learned it, never tried it, never seen it in the teachings of the Buddha. So that's why I don't practice it. But if you're practicing it and you think it's working for you, and you can see that you have more awareness of those bodily sensations, wonderful. Keep doing it.
Okay. Yeah. So because you would say everybody's different, and some maybe needs a bit more of that. Some need more of that.
There is a core central path that the Buddha taught, and everybody's going to need to learn that and develop that. But there's things like someone might need more loving kindness meditation than another person, right? But everyone's going to need loving kindness meditation. For me, I don't change the teachings of the Buddha. If the Buddha didn't teach it, then I'm not interested in practicing that at all. So because I know that this doesn't show up in the original teachings of the Buddha, and I never needed it, so I know it's not the teachings of the Buddha, so I don't do it and I don't teach it. But I know other people do teach it. So that's where I say, okay, well, you've got to look for yourself. You got to see the truth for yourself. That's why you're your own independent practitioner and you choose for yourself. But as soon as you go off the path, like what a Buddha is doing during their lifetime is they're putting lights along the path so that you can see very clearly that this is the path. But then over 2,500 years, people have come along and knocked over those lights, and they've put those lights out. And now you have the potential of going down this path that's going to mislead you. And this is going to take time and effort and energy for you to figure out, like, yeah, that doesn't work. So with this body scanning, I think people have had pretty good success with it. So if it's helpful for you, wonderful. But if you're noticing that it's not producing what it is that you're trying to accomplish, which is awareness of these bodily sensations, then I would suggest leaving it aside and focusing on breathing mindfulness meditation, because that's where the Buddha teaches you to be aware of the bodily sensations using breathing mindfulness meditation. Bring the mic here. I'll show you how to use it. You guys typically have this. So when you turn it on, oh, this one's the battery's dead. Yeah. So you guys have to change out the batteries there.
No, I'm really interested to try that out, because I want to know for myself.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested in other, like body scan, for example. I had good feelings with that in the past. So I thought about maybe I can mix it. But if you, that would be interesting if you say, try my technique out for a year maybe. But don't mix it with body scan or so, because then you don't find out which one is not good for you. So what you say about it?
I teach thousands and thousands of people that interact with me, and I share teachings with them. There's people there that learn with me that have never learned body scanning ever, and they're getting closer and closer to enlightenment without body scanning. So you don't have to use that in order to train your mind. That's why I say, if you're using it and it's helping you to become aware of the bodily sensations, wonderful, use it. But it's just not something I teach because it's not required. It's not something that's needed. It's not something that the Buddha taught in his original teachings. You won't find anywhere that he teaches body scanning. You'll learn something else. Like if you've ever been to some of these retreats, they'll teach you to label things or observe your feelings. This is not what the Buddha taught. In this situation, I say you got to let that one go, because that's exactly the opposite of what the Buddha is teaching. If you sat there in meditation and you observed your thoughts, you observed your feelings, you let them come into the mind, you get really intimate with these things, this is not allowing you to cultivate where you can let go. You can cut off and let go. So some people teach you to observe your thoughts, to label your thoughts, or they use the word noting, that you note your thoughts. This is exactly the opposite of what the Buddha taught. So in all these different environments that you go into where there's various retreats, you can oftentimes be exposed to things that are exactly the opposite of the teachings of the Buddha. And if you continue to do those things, it's not going to produce enlightenment for you. So the closer you can get to what the Buddha taught, this is what's going to produce your enlightenment. So that's why I don't do body scanning, even though I know it's something that people do, because I've seen the results already with what the Buddha taught. And I'm very comfortable with what the Buddha taught and sticking with that. Not only me, but when I teach it to my students and they're experiencing all the results, then I know, like, yeah, we don't need body scanning in order to get to enlightenment. But there's some people out there that use it and they say that it absolutely helps them. And this is really pivotal for them. So that's where you've got to be your own independent practitioner. But you got to be really careful when you're going outside the lines of what the Buddha did, because it's a Buddha that discovers what it takes to get to enlightenment. And for me, I wouldn't teach body scanning because I've never needed it. The Buddha never needed it. It's not in the original teachings. Just like I wouldn't teach noting or labeling and all these other things, because I know based on what you need to do with the mind, which is let go, those things don't allow you to do that. Here in Thailand, they do something where you meditate. They say, Puto, Puto. Were you exposed to this too? Yeah, that's not training your mind to let go. All you're doing is whatever thought that you would have had, you're replacing it with Puto, Puto. So your mind hasn't truly let go. It hasn't learned to let go. You're just replacing it with Puto, 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 or any of these others. So there's things that are being taught in the world today, like body scanning and puto and labeling and noting, that isn't what the Buddha taught. And these things can actually hinder you from getting to enlightenment, depending on what you're doing and what variation of those things. You won't find any of these types of things in the teachings of the Buddha. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Just check online, see if anybody's asking any questions there. I'm not seeing anything there. All right. So what I'm going to do is break for lunch here, and just thank you guys for your questions and your interest to learn. It's 12:15. Would you guys be okay with an hour and 15-minute lunch today? Come back at 1:30. Anybody attached to a 1.5 hour lunch? Anyone craving it? You guys can let that go? You guys can let that go? You can let go? Okay. So an hour and 15 minutes. We'll start back up at 1:30 here in Thailand. And for those of you guys online, it'll be an hour and 15 minutes from whatever time is now. So thank you all. We'll see you guys back in about an hour and 15 minutes. Okay.